Hello and welcome to the Storytelling for the Soul podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Kanata, and this is the place we talk about all things expressive writing and other creative techniques, all with a little bit of Buffy the Vampire Slayer thrown in. Buckle up and enjoy. Hello and welcome back to another episode. As you've likely gathered from the episode title, today I want to explore the notion that the feeling that we've been left behind in life. And as I usually do, I am going to be drawing on personal experience quite a bit in this episode. And I hope that this resonates with others who find themselves in a similar position. So for some context, I am currently recording this on the 5th of October, 2024. I'm 37 years old. I find myself in a position in life where I'm living alone. I have a stable job that is awesome and I love it. I have a business on the side where Storytelling for the Soul. I'm very fortunate that at this point in my life with where I am, I'm able to basically pick and choose what I do in my business. I don't have a partner. I don't have children. I am looking into getting a little furry friend, and I hope that that eventuates towards the end of this year, start of next year, because I feel like that would add quite a lot to my life. But life is pretty simple, and I've strategically made life simple. I am not into drama. I'm not into complexity. I'm not all that materialistic, to be honest. Of course, I enjoy the privilege, and I do understand that it's a privilege to have a home that is safe, that is warm, that caters for all of my needs. I'm in a location where I don't need to drive. I absolutely detest driving. I can basically walk everywhere. If I feel like I'm in need of some nature, there's a wonderful park, which is basically 5-10 minute max walk away. So to frame this conversation, I hope that I've accurately depicted that all of the basics and the necessities in my life have been taken care of. And like I said, I'm 37. I've witnessed most of my friends have partners, fall in love, get married. Some of them even have children now, multiple children in many cases. And my life situation really hasn't changed besides the financial component, because obviously in your 20s, you're less, well, most of us, less financially stable than in the 30s. I feel like most of the 20s are an exploration, figuring out that you don't have to be who people have led you to believe that you have to be in life. Then you get to your early 30s, which is dramatically, well, at least in my opinion, dramatically better than the 20s, and you're living life. And then you embark on the later 30s, which is where I'm at. And people may call this, and I do not like the terminology, which I'm going to clarify in a moment, that I am now approaching what would be called a midlife crisis. I don't think it's a crisis. I don't like that word. I think it's more of a revelation and an understanding. And I think, as one of my good friends has said, that I'm approaching this period in my life because it is basically so simple. And I don't want to say the distractions, but the responsibilities that a lot of people my age have in terms of partners, kids, that kind of thing. Obviously, I have a family, but pretty much for the majority of my life, I am alone. I don't at all feel lonely, but most of my life revolves around me, which isn't the case for most people of my age. So I'm at this point, perhaps a little bit earlier in life than some others, but it's become increasingly clear to me. So just for a little bit of background, in case you haven't heard any of the other podcasts, I basically moved to live alone for the first time at the end of 2023. So for the last 10 months, I've been living alone. It has been an amazing experience. It has meant that I have so much more alone time and time to reflect, time to do all the things. And basically, I structure my day to a certain extent because, of course, I still have to work. So I still have to be places from 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. I've still got responsibilities. But outside of that, my day looks the way that I want it to look. And there's no one to compromise with. There's no one to factor in. It's just me. So it's become increasingly clear, I would say, probably since my birthday on the 14th of July, that I am now at a point where this is life. Like, this is real. I feel like I spent a lot of my teenage years and 20s, even early 30s, almost in the future, as in this isn't what my life is going to be yet. And I'm 37 now, and hopefully I live quite a bit longer, but it is pretty much mid-life of the average age life expectancy. And if you're listening with kids around, block their ears. Shit is real now. Like, there's not years and years and years ahead to make my life the way that I want it to look or create my life as such. And look, let's face it, we're all here on borrowed time because I'm making this podcast now, but tomorrow I may not wake up. And that's just the reality of life. And obviously we can't live that way because that'd be a pretty depressing way to live. But at 37, it's really clear and apparent to me that this is life. The universe is not shitting around. This is it. This is the time to do all the things that I need and want to do, the things that perhaps I've put off and thought, well, this is not the right time. And I will say that I am in a pretty unique position, having no relationship and no kids. And basically that's all bullshit. It's just a social construct. And obviously this depends on where you've grown up in the world, but I'm in Australia and I come from a pretty traditional half Italian, half Maltese heritage. I'm very fortunate that my parents are actually pretty open-minded. There was never any pressure to do certain things, but society and culture is just so much bigger than your parents because you've also got your entire direct family, you've got the people you're around in school, education, wider networks. And I'm going to be honest with you, up until recent times, the ideal life trajectory was go to school, go to uni, get a good degree, get a good job, meet the love of your life, maybe have kids. I was never 100% sold on kids. I'm going to be honest with you. I, unlike many other women that I hear, never really felt all that maternal. It was more of a, well, if I met the right person, maybe that would be a natural growth and evolution within our relationship. But it wasn't something that I've been dreaming of since I was a little kid. I have to be honest about that. And then the kids, obviously, they take up most of your time, especially now, because if they're anything like me, they don't even leave home until they're 36. So, and then you grow old with your partner. That is the planned life trajectory. And my life has looked drastically different. And if I'm honest with you, I'm thinking not of my parents, perhaps some others in my networks. I don't want to get too personal here, but if they looked at my life on a piece of paper and from what they know, they would say that this life has been a failure and potentially there would be some pity there. But this is the thing. Not everyone's life has to look a certain way. I certainly don't feel like any less of a person because I don't have a relationship and children. I feel like that has given me an ability to pursue a lot of other things that perhaps I wouldn't have been able to and to learn a lot more about myself, because most people are it's just reality. You have to look after your kids. It's not like as if up until a certain point, of course, you have to put the time, effort, energy into looking after them. So here I am. And this is the other thing that's becoming really apparent. And I should say that I'm currently reading The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. I did read it when I had just turned 30, and it just really didn't land for me. I just didn't understand the concepts, didn't get it at all. But this time and this read around, it is really landing, and I am really understanding the concept that all I have is now, literally now, as I am talking to you. The past is done. The future hasn't arrived yet. So living in the past and the future is pretty much futile, because everything happens in the now. I also quite enjoy how Tolle doesn't really fixate on the notion of happiness. He talks more about inner peace. And that does actually resonate with me, because I feel like happiness is typically fleeting. Sure, lots of things can make you happy in the moment, but most of them inevitably either fade away or definitely just fade in terms of their intensity. So I really like this notion of inner peace. And reflecting on my journey over the last 10 months, having moved into my own place, having my own space, dictating basically 90% of my life, besides the non-negotiables that, since I'm living in the world, in the physical world, I have to do, regardless of whether I want to do them or not. But most of my life is exactly how I want it to be on a daily basis. And I have found inner peace and inner calm, even though my life looks nothing like what society may say would bring those things. And another point that I want to make, because maybe this will help someone else, certainly would have helped me probably in my, I'm going to say, early 20s. So I do consider myself a fairly ambitious person, but trust me, I am nothing currently like what I was in my early 20s. I was full on, really intense. I wanted to do all the things, climb the corporate ladder, achieve. And I'm nothing like that at the age of 37. I think once you have a certain level of comfort and wealth, anything on top of that isn't necessarily going to add positively to your life. That's just my current thoughts. It may change. I want to pursue things and achieve things to contribute, to feel like I'm here for a purpose. But outside of that, there's no bone in my body attached to anything like titles or climbing any kind of corporate ladder. In fact, it actually repels me at this point in my life. I just don't have any will to be doing that. But I was listening to a YouTube video last Sunday, I believe it was. I don't know if I'm actually gonna botch up this channel name, but the handle is Scott STE Marie. I want to say Saint, but I don't think you're supposed to pronounce it like that. And I watched a few of Scott's videos, and I have to say I really enjoyed them. But there was one quote and one concept in particular that really stuck with me. And this is the quote: "There's nothing on top of the mountain, but there's so much on the path." And for me, this just really resonates, because reflecting back, there are so many things that I wanted so desperately with every bone in my body. And then once I achieved said thing, sure, I'd be happy for maybe a week, maybe a month, but inevitably, first of all, the expectation never quite lived up to what I suspected and imagined it would be. But secondly, that feeling faded and evaporated pretty quickly. So one really easy, tangible example of this that I can think of that isn't too personal, because there are some more personal things that I would rather not talk about publicly, but my picture book, Willow Willpower. I spent, I want to say something like 4 years working on that concept idea. I went down the track of self-publishing. I tried to get an illustrator. I ended up landing someone through a connection that was actually quite regarded in the area, but they just didn't quite nail the character and the illustrations. We were just on different pages, basically. And then at that point, of course, I ran out of money to go down the self-publishing route, because picture books, you need illustrations, can't really get away from that. I can't draw to save me. So eventually found quite a small independent publisher, really like their ethics, morals, values, Blue Turtle Publishing. I'll give them a shout out. And eventually, 4 years later, that picture book was published. And I was so happy when I first held that copy in my hands. It's a feeling I'm sure many authors can resonate with, but it's really hard to articulate. But inevitably, once the book launches, comes, goes, everyone's moved on, the happiness wanes. And I realized, okay, now I'm a published author. That's a bit of an ego thing too, I must say. Now I'm an officially published author. Great. I'm on top of the mountain. Hopefully you're sticking with me and following. This is not as depressing as it may seem on the first listen or the initial listen, because I'm not saying that things aren't worth pursuing. I still have quite a number of things, goals that I am striving towards, that I would love to happen. But drawing back to the quote, it's really the path that matters. It's not the outcome. So if you're in a space where you're feeling tired, burnt out, striving towards something, I think this is actually quite a positive message, because really at the end of the day, the picture book, for example, the launch, the excitement, it's going to come and go. However, who I had to be and who I had to become over those 4 years, that's the real gold, because that is what I take into the rest of my life here. Those experiences can't be bought. It's in the becoming, or in the being, if you choose to think of it that way. So, and this is from my mentor, who I absolutely love working with. If you have some massive lofty goal that feels so far away, good for you. That's awesome. I love that. But ask yourself and think about this, and don't lie to yourself. Are you the person right now who you need to be if that thing were to happen overnight? Are you that person? Simple question. I'm going to leave this episode here. I think it's a bit of a longer one, but if you're a little like me and feeling like you're in a midlife reflection, revelatory phase of your life, or you're just feeling like you're left behind, forget it. You're not. You're exactly where you need to be. So much is just culture and society feeding us lies, because so much is actually just man-made. It's a bit like time. Time doesn't really exist. Time is a man-made thing. Of course, we're in the physical world. We want to live here. We want to enjoy our time here. We have to roll with things and concepts like time. But if you think about it, they don't actually really exist. And I'm here to tell you that regardless of where you find yourself right now, as you listen to this, you are exactly where you need to be. You're not a minute too early. You're not a minute too late. I'm going to leave it there. See you next week.